Vegas Rock Dog Radio. Pets, people, pop culture. Bring on the host, Sam, the queen of rock and roll dogs.
Hello everyone, I'm Sam, the queen of rock and roll dogs and the host of Vegas Rock Dog Radio. On today's show, I'm talking about dogs, cats and scapegoats with documentarian Hugh Dorigo, so stay right there.
Vegas Rock Dog Radio. Pets, people, pop culture.
Hi everyone, welcome to the show. I'm your host, Sam, the queen of rock and roll dogs, and this is Vegas Rock Dog Radio. We are a rock and roll show all about pets, people, and pop culture. In studio with me today is Mr. Jim Dorigo.
Good morning.
Good morning. And we've got Mr. Twix and Miss Thornton in studio. And Miss Galaxy looks down on us to make sure we always provide a great show for you every single week with tons of information and often some good old laughs because I've never had a day where I don't laugh anyway. So, of course, we'd have a show, we'd have some laughs in it too. But we do have some very good information we like to give out, and today's going to be one of those shows. But before we even bring our guest on, and I'll tell you a little bit about our guest. 3 times now, I have watched Dogs, Cats, and Scapegoats documentary. It's pretty complex. It's every time I watch it, I pick up something new. And then I realized it's a huge puzzle about how we are with our animals. And so that's what we're going to talk about with you is the documentary and how complex it is having pets in our lives and how we treat them, basically. And it is, as I say, a lot of pieces to this, a lot of pieces. And hopefully we'll get through most of it through the show itself. Well, I've been traveling a lot. I've been traveling a great deal. It started with a cross-country road trip from Vegas all the way to Lamars, Iowa. And everyone kept saying to me, why? Well, I helped my partner in our charity, Rockin' for Rescues, actually move across country with her dogs. So while her husband, Eddie, he drove all the furniture and had the most boring drive ever because he was by himself, Pam and I had the 4 dogs in the truck. And it was quite the adventure, as I'm sure lots of you already saw on Facebook. It was, after a while you start going a little bit doolally, as we like to say in England, a little bit doolally. And that's exactly what we did. But we decided we would raise money along the way because, as you know, we raise money all the time for our rescue groups to keep them funded. And so we just had some fun along the way and raised money from the truck. and that wasn't after, wasn't until I'd been thrown up on twice and covered in so much dog hair. It wasn't even funny. And then after a while, you just don't care because, after hours of that, you're like, well, okay, this is what we're going to look like for the next, we thought was going to be 3 days travel. Ended up being 2 days travel. And we did really well until we got to Colorado. And I don't know why it never crossed my mind because I've done the drive before. We left Vegas at 90-degree temperatures and then it was snowing. We weren't really dressed for that. But it got a little bit hairy scary going up the mountain in the dark. Snow coming down, big trucks flying in front of us and stuff splashing all over the windshield. And also windshield wipers that didn't work because in Vegas we don't use them. rarely have to use them, and when we do have to use them, the rubber is usually perished, and you get that horrific scrape across the windshield, and it's not helping anyone. So although I was awake and could have driven a lot further, I just couldn't see. So it was kind of a good idea to stop. Found a pet-friendly hotel for 4 dogs. No joke. I think the biggest dog is like 55 pounds. So no one batted an eyelid, and we, as we say, we rocked up with these 4 dogs and a vacuum cleaner because it was raining, and we didn't want the rain to wet the vacuum cleaner in the back of the truck. So, and the lady looked at us and we said, "Oh, we're such great guests. We're going to vacuum up before we leave." And she had a good old laugh over that. But great hotel in what was the name of the place? Eagle, Colorado, about 10 minutes out from Vail. And that area is so gorgeous, and people were so friendly, and it was lovely. And then we continued on. We go through that big giant tunnel, and I've forgotten the name of it, through the mountain. And then once you start going over the other side, the snow starts to go away, and then you make your way into Nebraska, and that's just cornfields galore, flat cornfields. And I think just through our sheer boredom of the trip, it was like, let's just keep driving and just get this over and done with. So we made it in 2 days. When we got to Le Mans, it was snowing. So we'd gone through all kinds of weather. We'd gone from flip-flops to boots in 2 days' time. It does take a fair bit of coordinating. It does take a fair... Oh, Jim's just trying to connect with our guest here. It does take a lot of coordinating when you're with... even if it's one dog, you have got to be very vigilant of safety, getting in and out of the vehicle, make sure they're secured in the vehicle. A lot of steps, a lot of coordinating for safety. And of course, you can't go walking into restaurants with dogs and 4 dogs and have lunch. So you just eat what you can on the road, and it's not always great. You do the very, very best that you can. And it was quite the experience. And it was quite the adventure for us, and a great time to raise money. I mean, if you're going to be sat in a truck for 2 days straight, why not raise the money as you go along? So that's what we did, and we got there, and the dogs needed to... Hang on one second, Jim. I'm just trying to get Jim's attention there. The dogs are a little bit out of sorts. You get somewhere new. They don't have the same backyard. It's not fenced in yet. They didn't have their doggy door, so they're used to that kind of freedom. So there was definitely a little bit of like, oh, what's going on? But we got there. We made it. We made a lot of people laugh, and we raised some money along the way. So that was the first big trip. Then I flew back, and flew all the way back, and as I'm unpacking, my husband was packing to leave for Baltimore, and the show he's in, which is Frankie's show.
I can't hear you.
They were playing. Well, they were playing where the symphony was backing them. The Baltimore Symphony was backing them. So I came in, he left. He came back a few days later, and I got ready to leave for Blog Pause. And this is the one thing that I was looking forward to, and it was in Kansas City. And Blog Pause is the Pet Bloggers Conference, and there's a few hundred pet bloggers around in that conference. It's super, super fun. Got to see tons and tons of my friends, friends I've made online that I finally got to meet in person, which was great. And then, of course, make new friends and connect with brands and connect with all these amazing people who are doing things for animals through blogging or through podcasts or through their video work that they do. And so it was a great trip. And Jim didn't particularly want to go, so he gave a ticket to Pam, so she got to leave Iowa again. She met me there. She drove. And we had some fun. Because I picked up something, some kind of... I don't sound like myself today because I picked up some weird... I don't even know what it was, because I haven't been ill in over 10 years, I would say, something like that. So that wasn't a good thing, at the beginning of the conference. I was like, I'm just going to have to plow through this, because otherwise I think if I was just visiting for fun, I would have just stayed in bed the whole time. But we made it work. We made it work. And there are sessions that run throughout the days. And then, meal times, you get to connect with lots and lots of people. And at the very end is a big red carpet gala dinner and awards. And we got to dress up and have some fun with that and hang out with our friends. So that was great. And then I made my way back, and I've not been back that long. In fact, I think I came back just about a week ago. And, you got to pick up where you left off. And, any time that you leave home and you work from home, there's always a lot of work when you get back. So one of the things I've been working on this week is that tomorrow we're part of, and I've been invited to be part of, the Findlay Cadillac Through the Years event. So we have a booth with Rocking for Rescues, and we're giving away some, food treats. We're giving away food and treats. We've got our treasure chest where you make a donation, grab something from the treasure chest. We'll have our signature, and everybody loves these, our Rocking for Rescues, Pick a Rescue Dog t-shirts for sale. So come and find us. We're going to be at Town Square tomorrow, Sunday, and that's on the Las Vegas Boulevard. We'll be there from 11 to 4. So come by and see us. And, of course, as you know, I've been rock painting. So I've been rock painting tons of animal-themed rocks for people to purchase. Again, all the money goes to support our rescues. So that's kind of how life's been for the last month. It's been really, really hectic and crazy and lots of fun. So that's my update. So I've done my update, Jim. Aren't you happy about that?
That's great.
Oh, no, you sounded...
I wasn't paying attention to you because I'm trying to work your technical piece, so sorry.
To be honest with you, Jim and I really have hardly seen each other last month. So, so sometimes sitting down doing the show is our catch-up time, really, in all honesty. Well, before I bring my guest on, let me just tell you where you're going to find us on the internet. You're going to find us at vegasrockdogradio.com. That's where you'll listen to the show, and then you can listen to the archive show straight from the website as well. You'll find us on Periscope, Facebook, Pinterest, Twitter, Instagram, which I'm loving at the moment, and we have a blog, therockandrolldog.com. And if you don't catch the live show, then of course you can catch us on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spoke by SiriusXM, and any other podcast app that you may have on your phone. You're going to find the show. Right. With that said, Mr. Jim. Oh no, I've got one more thing before we bring our lovely guest on. Tip of the week. This is a simple tip, but everyone's going to love this tip. So, I've got my partner in our charity flying in on Monday, so I'm trying to get the house in order. And probably like everybody else, we've got 1 million fabulous, fluffy, plush blankets, pet blankets, and they always seem to look horrible after one wash. They look old and tatty after one wash, and I've got a solution for you. Instead of adding soap to your washing machine, just add some distilled white vinegar, and it deep cleans without leaving any soapy residue, and then throw it in the dryer on fluff, no heat, and those blankets will look good as new. So there's my pet tip of the day, because I can't stand a ratty-looking pet blanket at all. And I do love a blanket, down to Jim. So that's my little tip. And then that's it. So you've got the update of all the crazy traveling. I think I've done something like 6,000 miles in the last month. So I need to stay home for a couple of days. That's what I think I need to do. Well, as I say, one of the things I have done, as I say, recently, and as recent as this morning, because I wanted Jim to see the documentary, was to watch the documentary, Dogs, Cats, and Scapegoats. And I say it's the third time I've watched it this morning. There's always a takeaway every single time. It is a complex issue, how we live with animals, how we treat animals, how we view animals. And it's, as I say, it's one of the best documentaries I have watched in a very long time. And I watch many, many of them. And I want to bring on my guest, Hugh Dorigo. Hi, Hugh. How are you?
Hi, how are you doing?
Oh, you have a great voice. You must have you have a great mic. You must have.
I'm glad you can hear me. We had some technical issues there.
Hey, Hugh, it's not the first time.
Hugh, we've got a good connection, so you're good to go. I'm going to sit back and listen to you guys talk.
It sounds so good. It sounds so good. It honestly does. Well, I'm so glad you're on the show with us, Hugh. How interesting that we have a very similar last name, although spelt differently. Jim's name is Dorigo. Dorigo.
Yeah, I saw that.
I'm like, oh, what are the chances of that? So do you get called Dorito? Because we get called Dorito.
I
often.
do. That's happened. That's
Yay!
happened.
We're not alone, Jim. We're not alone in the pain of that. Well,
I was called Huge Dorito by one of a
no,
student I had one.
that's so rude.
That's great. I dig that.
Well, I'm just thrilled that you came on the show. I actually watched your documentary a long time ago, and I've been following your page, and I always have a big list of the people I want to bring on the show. I like to bring on people that there's so much to contribute, I think, from this documentary. And I say we watched it for the third time this morning, so I wanted Jim to be able to see it and understand this massive jigsaw of how we are with animals. And what I want to ask you first, I guess, is what acted as the catalyst that led into making this documentary?
Well, I think I've been building up to this most of my life. I mean, 10 years ago, I made a film on farmed animals. And so I let that ruminate for a long time, and I just I couldn't avoid all the interconnections between all these animals. And the actual, the one thing that might have flipped it was some conversations I had with people about these issues, and they were just so divorced from, I think, reality, and so devoid of complexity.
Yes.
I thought someone had to address that.
Yeah. I think some people have a very simplistic view of it, and I think some people, like you say, just are ignorant to really what's going on. And it's so complex. I just want to let you know that Jim and I, we work with about 27 rescues, so we are very familiar with that part of the animal world and all that is involved in that. Of course, because of the show and obviously my love of animals, I'm always trying to keep tabs on the laws and those kind of things. And again, that's another component of, how we are with our animals and the laws that surrounding them. I never think they're strong enough anyway. So we do have quite an insight to the complexity of it. And the more I've watched your documentary, more I'm like, oh, how do I feel about that now? I feel it's made me think so much that almost to the point I think I need to write a big fat list and go point by point and say, what is my stance on this? Because I think sometimes we just spout what we hear from everybody else,
Exactly.
without fully understanding what we're saying. And it's and I'm seeing this a lot. I'm like, what do you mean by that when you say that? What does that mean? And I just don't know sometimes what they even know what it means when they spout some of these things. And there are a lot of taglines, aren't there, that are, going around as associated with animals, like adopt, don't shop, pets are family. And what do all those things really, really mean? So I guess you just got to the point where you're like, enough, I've got to do a documentary
That's pretty much what happened.
Address this. Jim's trying to communicate with me. What do you want, Jim? Oh, okay, because he's flailing his arms around there. I don't think he's choking, so I think he's okay in the studio. What do you ask me? Okay. All right, I've got a little message from Jim there. So the catalyst was you're having these conversations and finally you go, I've got to piece it together for people so that they can see the complexity of all of this. How long did it take you to put the entire documentary together?
Well, I worked on it alone mostly, so it took me a good 2 years to do that. Given the amount of interviews, that's what really kills the time.
Yeah, and
piecing together something like 20 interviews, it was just maybe a bit overkill, but.
Well, I actually was so impressed with the people that you interviewed because, Temple Grandin, I don't even know how you even secure an interview with her. I mean, she's incredible. I mean, she's made so many people aware of animal welfare and quite a pioneer in the animal world. And then, I think you covered the gamut with the type of people that you interviewed.
That was the idea, yeah. Yeah,
and I think that was to me, I think that gives a very, very good picture and definitely from each person's perspective from the area that they work in. So it's called Dogs, Cats, and Scapegoats, and basically animals are scapegoats for our community sins.
That's right.
And when it boils down to it, and why are we using animals as scapegoats for all our dirty deeds, and how we treat them?
Because because it's possible. So that whenever there's a power differential like that, you have someone who's has more power over someone else. The voiceless party in that relationship is going to be victimized in some way. And with dogs and cats, you can see it in various ways.
Yeah.
It also helps us, I think, protect our own sensibilities and positive images of ourselves. Right?
Yeah.
And animals fit the perfect. I mean, they play that role perfectly for us, and it's unfortunate.
It really is, because I just feel that I think if you don't view animals as equal or with some value, then you will definitely use them for that reason, won't you? And like you say, people want to have a good image a lot of the
That's right.
time. The one report that was it the ASPCA that they did their report where it's a voluntary survey kind of thing.
Yeah, they do them all like that, basically.
And it's interesting because one, you could opt out of it if it got to a question that was a little bit squirrely that made you a little bit uncomfortable about being a pet owner. Yeah, so how do we even get a true picture of who's keeping an animal for life, who's abandoning them, who's giving them away, who's breeding them, backyard breeders?
Well, I mean, that's it. You have to look at the data that we have and then extrapolate beyond that. And I mean, basically, all we learn about these self-selection bias surveys when you're asking questions that pertain to the behavior or to the ethics, and there's an ethical component to it. You're not going to get an accurate picture.
No.
And so that's why we don't, find out what the prevalence of child abuse is by calling parents and asking them if they're abusing their children, because all we find out is that parents consider themselves to be model parents.
Yes, they do. Yeah,
it's valueless. That's it.
Yeah. Why do you think they even do these surveys?
Well, that's a complicated question. They have policies, I think, in my opinion, is they have policies that they want to promote, and so they reverse engineer surveys and studies.
Oh, that makes sense.
It's from what I've read from Emily Weiss, and I can only really address what I've read from her. She seems to be the one who's doing that, and especially the Pets as Gifts study. I mean, that is very clearly reverse engineered from my perspective.
Oh yeah, I definitely got that from that whole thing. And isn't that a shame? Because again, it's this using of animals, for profit gain or fame, which I have a big problem with as well.
I really got a feeling of they're drinking the Kool-Aid when I watched that segment of the documentary.
There was definitely a different feel, from people who are deep-rooted in animal welfare and people that are definitely enjoying the benefits of the money that comes along with animals. There was definitely a big difference there. And like you say, the reason why they do these surveys is because, like you say, reverse engineer, there's something to push. And how do we do that? I found it interesting that one press release that was very carefully crafted about the pets. And
the UC Davis press release?
And how only 4% of the people understood really what they were saying, and once changed around to be, I said, just clearer, then people realized exactly what that press release was saying.
Yeah, all they basically did there was write a title that was incredibly misleading based on what was actually found.
Yes.
So I've sent that to people. Veterinarians have fallen for that, I've been told. I mean, people, and then you send it to them and explain it to them, not to veterinarians, they're just regular people, and they still have a hard time understanding it because they've already read the title.
Yes.
And they've already got an idea in their head about what it actually means. And I try to explain to them, the data says the opposite.
It says the opposite. It's just like press release clickbait is what it is. And you and I both know people don't read. Well, generally they don't read well in detail, but often it's just the headline and they didn't read the rest of it. I've had that before. Someone made a comment about something on one of my pages, and I said, Did you read the article? And she said, no, but from everyone else's comments on this post, I've come up with this. And I was just kind of stunned by that. And I said, well, I suggest you go back and actually read the article because you're incorrect in what you're actually posting. And even it's just weird. And
even in the article itself or the press release itself, it has other misleading language that that just confirms the title. Although the truth is in there, the data is in there, but it's very easy to overlook it if you just read the way they phrase. And the language is so carefully parsed. It was done intentionally. This was not a mistake. They know it. I mean, I've had email exchange with them.
Wow.
They must know this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they're doing it to,
I have.
that's a whole nother story.
I'm one of those people that, one, I don't take anything on face value anyway, and never have. But and like you say, it's crafty. And a couple of weeks ago, I did a show about toxic pet shampoos and how crafty they are on their labeling and how they describe things. And what I'm seeing now is again, people being fooled again by pet shampoos that say we meet the USDA organic standards, but they are not USDA certified organic. But anyone else can gloss over that and go, "Oh, it's organic," and it's not. And
that's the way Cesar Millan uses the term animal behaviorist.
Oh, my best friend.
Right?
Well,
that's what he does.
Yeah,
he takes he takes a word that has no legal a term that has no legal definition, and then exploits it for profit.
Yeah, just makes it up, basically. I really enjoyed how Bernard Rowland described him. That little guy, that's insecure.
I put that in there because I hope doesn't come across as gratuitous, but he's really getting at the psyche because his show is not about dogs. I know everyone thinks it is. It's not.
No,
it's about
not.
him.
It is 100%.
And people who relate to him.
Well, that's right. And I've also said this, and I've also found that people who are dominant over their pets, which you don't need to dominate your pet, it's sad, pathetic, really. But people who dominate, the people that use shock collars and prong collars and choke collars have this personality. There's definitely, I wish there was a study done on people that use these aversive methods, but it's the same kind of thing. It's that aggressive, it's about them. It's never about their animal. And,
that's true.
I kind of have a badge of honor. I think I'm blocked by everything that he does, every social media account that he has. Fine. It's a badge of honor for me. I'm all about that. Because I think there's been, and they touch on that, in is it Karen Overall? She touches on that in the documentary, which is, it's not just about him, but he's done a lot of damage to the dog training world. And then what happens when you then end up with a dog that's very fearful? We're talking about bites, and again, what happens? They end up being abandoned again. So this whole
we know statistically that his methods are recycled force training methods, and they are known to produce more aggression, not less. Yeah. More aggression, not less. More fear. Yeah. They make dogs less trusting of their owners. So we can measure this, and we know that it's true. But what you'll always hear is, from his opponents, at least I have, it's like, "Oh, he's helped my dog," or my dog's behavior has changed. But one thing that you have to understand is that it's entirely possible to modify undesirable behavior with harmful training methods.
Oh.
So there's this disconnect between, the behavior changed, so therefore it quote unquote works. Well, that is not the right question.
Yes.
That's not the right question.
That's exactly. It's frustrating. 'Cause I'm sure you're the same when you're online and you go, "Do I have enough breath in me to try and educate right now?" Yeah. And I think that's a massive component that's missing, and how the science is there. Like I said, the science is there. Force-free training works. Yeah, you might get a result with aversive training, but at what cost to your animal? And then you've got a fearful animal, and then again, boom, back in the shelter, given up, don't want the dog anymore. So each one of these scenarios basically explains how animals end up being homeless. And so poor training is one of them. I feel like training is going to become a big thing this year. How we saw raw feeding a couple of years ago popped up. Coconut oil popped up, CBD oils popped up as a trend, becoming the norm now. I think training's going to get its limelight, and we really need it, because I think we have a lot of people that are causing a lot of damage to their animals unbeknowingly. It really is overlooked, isn't it?
It's completely. It's overlooked, and he has a big part in that. No one does studies on him and what he's been doing. No one keeps statistics on it, and he has such a fan base that even the large welfare organizations won't go up against him.
I know. I wonder what the fear is there.
That's the problem.
I mean,
It's this whole, there's a lot of money involved, a ton of money involved.
Well, he's got some backing by the Hollywood elite too, doesn't he?
He does. Yeah,
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
Will Smith got his career started. He went from a dog handler to a national celebrity because he knew a celebrity. So that's a problem.
it is a problem, and now he's bringing his son into the arena of training.
Yeah,
And
that's all we need.
It's like, oh gosh, now we're going to the next generation, and it is difficult, I think, sometimes to talk to people. I mean, even I am the kind of person that if there's an opportunity, I can help someone, whether it's put me in the right direction as far as nutrition or training, or I mean, I did speak to a rescue this week, and again, I think they also fall victim to a lot of this as well. Is I've got this trainer coming, they'll work for free, and I go, well, let me check them out for you. I'm like, oh no, there's a lot of language there from CM is what I'm going to call him from now on. There's a lot of language in there, but you've got to be aware of this, the dominance, alpha role, pack leader. So you've got to be aware of all of that. And sometimes I'm met with, but they want to help us for free. And I go, what cost your animals? I'm very black and white about it. At what cost your animals? I said, I don't see them having any qualifications. Let me point you in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, that's...
It's another complicated... It's another complicated relationship because with me working with rescues a lot, I also see why animals get returned because they use someone with those methods, or they gloss over certain things, the way that they present the animals, and then they come back to them.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's a huge category for abandonment or surrender, for sure, and it's just not looked at. It's a real problem. And that's why this problem will probably never end, because unless you look at the behavior issue and take responsibility for it, and that's the big problem, it won't end.
It won't. I hate to say it, but it won't. You're right. You're absolutely right. And I work with rescues. And there are times when I go, what is this treadmill we're on? What is this treadmill that we're going?
That's what it is. It's a hamster wheel.
It is. And I get so frustrated. I mean, so frustrated. Because there's so many tentacles to the whole thing. It's not the solution. Rescues are not the solution.
And how do you solve a problem that you won't name, that you can't name?
I know.
I mean, that's the problem I have with the no-kill movement. Now, sure, they've raised a lot of awareness, and certainly they can be credited for a lot of reduction in euthanasia, especially through the spay and neuter efforts. But the fictions that are being perpetrated now are terribly damaging. I mean, there are plenty of if someone tells you that there are plenty of homes out there, the only welfare problem we need to worry about is euthanasia, and society's not to blame. There's no population problem. How many times have you heard this?
All the time.
It is so easily debunkable, but it doesn't matter because it's just these notions are promulgated. Now, what does that do to the society? They just think, well, I mean, it's not. I don't have to do anything. The problem's essentially solved. It's the shelter's fault.
Yeah. Oh,
talk about an oversimplification or a scapegoat. That's the worst aspect.
It really is the worst aspect. I just, oh gosh, it's just so. I don't know how you made this documentary without losing your tiny mind, because when you actually really do drill down and look at this problem, you're like, it's massive. And there are so many parts, and how do we tackle it? But I think what it all boils down to is how we view our animals. Are they valuable to us? Do we feel that they're equal, that they deserve, to be in a home for the rest of their life? It's down to people being responsible. And how do you make people responsible? Is it through laws? I mean, people always break laws. Is it through more education? But do people voluntarily go and get education? I
think it's through I think it's through enforcing norms and changing the norms and then enforcing them. So we don't do that. So if you ask people what they approve of or don't approve of in this arena, they would, they might say the right things, but they're not going to enforce that. They're not going to make someone pay a social cost for abandoning an animal, for example, which there isn't any.
No.
I mean, there's no reason, there is no excuse too absurd to garner, to garner social condemnation in this society. Well, it doesn't exist. So why do you expect people to change?
Exactly. They don't. That's the thing. And I mean, we have a spay neuter law here in Vegas. Yeah. No one enforces it. How do you enforce that? I mean,
Yeah,
no,
there's no enforcement.
no one's showing up to a big giant dog event and saying, "Cock your dog's leg up. Let me see if your dog's fixed or not." No one is enforcing it. So how you've just got
the other aspect to the spay and neuter thing though is we're so we're at 85% right now at spay and neuter of owned pets.
Mm-hmm.
So where do you go from there? I mean, we're hitting diminishing returns, and so it seems like we are definitely using sterilization at this point to compensate for irresponsible pet ownership.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go to Sweden, and I know it's a different country, but it's a great example. The culture is completely different. The society looks at these issues completely different. They spay 10% of their population. 90% are not spayed. It's illegal to spay a dog that it does not for outside of medical necessity.
That's amazing.
And so I thought that was interesting because I heard someone give an interview and they had no idea what this even meant. And I said, well, I'll find out what it means. And so I emailed them.
I love that.
I talked to the kennel clubs there, and it's very simple. People take responsibility for their pets. There are no homeless dogs in Sweden in shelters that are going to be euthanized. They don't exist.
Jim, we're moving to Sweden. We are moving to Sweden.
Well, Hugh, I found an interesting correlation as I was watching the bigger picture of your documentary. And the one thing that really struck me was the socioeconomic piece. One, that people choose designer dogs, and the whole 19th and 20th century push toward the aesthetics to show who you are in the social ladder of being an American. And then I correlated that to the exit interviews, why people were turning dogs in, and it really is that huge socioeconomic piece.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we think about dogs. I did a segment on it called "The Illusion of Extinction," and that's related to what you're saying. This fascination with breeds, and we have to somehow preserve them. What are you trying to preserve, and who are you preserving it for? It's a socioeconomic thing.
Yeah.
They need to fit our needs, and what we mean by needs generally is they have to look a certain way. So when you say something, so when someone says to you, "I love bulldogs," people think they're talking about dogs. They're not. They've said nothing about an individual animal. They've said that they love a particular characteristic or a collection of characteristics. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah.
And so when they no longer fit that need, whatever that need is, they get turned in like any other commodity.
They do, and I've had friends that have got their dogs from breeders and pet stores, and they always do that whole "I'm saving them," and I said, actually, you're not. You're not saving at all. You're actually putting the money right back into the system for this to continue. So why not just say what it is? I would much prefer someone said, "Well, I just really wanted a bulldog, and I went to the pet store." I rather than try and certainly don't convince me you were saving an animal. You're talking to the wrong person here.
Yeah, exactly. It seems like everyone has a rescue dog. How is that possible?
How is that possible? We've got all these dogs.
But the only ones they're fooling are the welfare groups that are doing the surveys.
Right, exactly.
It's like, I had someone write to me. I'm not going to mention who it was. An author write to me, and she was saying people are adopting en masse now, and the problem's going away. I said, "There's no data to support that.
What are you on
buying
about?
into a narrative. Look at abandonment. Look at the puppy mills, dog farms that are just thriving. They're still thriving.
Oh, they're still thriving.
The demand is still there. I mean, where is all this adoption coming from? And to adopt something, you have to have an abandonment. So that opens up a whole new can of worms.
Yes,
there goes the cycle.
That's it. That's it. When a rescue says, "Well, yay, we've adopted 100 animals," and that's 100 that were abandoned.
Right. So if you just focus on adoption, you are going to lose sight of what the problem is.
Yes, exactly. I mean, someone reached out. Well, people reach out to me every single day, but someone reached out to me yesterday and said, this lady, she's moving. Well, of course, they're always moving, and wherever they move to, never take a dog, which is just ridiculous. But they're moving, they can't take their dog, what rescue would you recommend? I said, listen, if she dumps her dog at a rescue, she needs to give them a very big donation for taking care of her problem. And that friend was taken aback by that. And I said, because that's exactly what it is. Rescues are taking care of other people's problems.
That's exactly what it is. And the other thing we overlook is the churning of the animals through. We generally just look at we adopted this man, and this many were euthanized, but no one looks at the churning, the turnover rate, essentially, and the welfare issues that are then engendered by the shelters themselves. Not that the shelters are bad, but that being in that situation, being abandoned, being confined, creates all these different welfare issues. And that just ignores that. And when I talked to Richard Evans, not to pick on Richard Evans, for Maddie's Fund, but I asked him all these questions, and I got a lot of conflicting answers.
Yeah.
And he said, well, we're just focused on getting the dogs into new homes. I'm like, but that's one aspect, and you can overlook all these other problems that are contributing to that are making that problem even worse.
Yes, and I think when you don't address, I think it was Bernard that mentioned talking to someone at a shelter when a woman came in and said, please find my dog a home, with a lake because he loves to swim, and she didn't have, I guess, the authority because they've been given a directive. Let's not ruffle any feathers with people that abandon their pets, even though what they're doing is horrific. And she couldn't tell the truth and say it's probably not going to get adopted because of its age. And she went ahead and said yes. Now, why are we not being truthful? Why are we not being truthful when they dump them off and we say we'd like to let you know the statistics at our particular shelter are, seniors more than likely will not get adopted, and eventually euthanization is going to be there. Why are we not honest?
Yeah. Because you'll make them feel guilty, and then they'll just dump them on the street. I mean, this is the problem. So we have no laws that are going to punish people for doing that. So if we make it easier for them to do that, they will do that. That's the problem.
They'll find another way.
They will absolutely find another way. And the insidious part of no-kill, in my view, is that the shelters then, they're attacked for euthanizing. And so what they'll do now is, a lot of these euthanasia numbers have come down from removing animals from the system or not taking them in.
Right.
And so that in itself should not be celebrated. Okay,
No.
so they'll do interviews. Now, I live in Maricopa County. It's one of the largest intake facilities in the country. And now they're doing, I hear they're going to start doing interviews when people abandon their animals. Well, what is that going to do?
They're already abandoning them. They made their mind up.
They're not going to do the interview. They're not going to do the interview because they don't want to feel bad. So they're not going to go to your shelter, and the dog will wind up, or the cat. Cats are completely invisible once you abandon them. They'll wind up on the street, and euthanasia numbers will come down, and the no-kill movement will celebrate it.
Yeah.
But that in itself should not be celebrated.
No, it shouldn't. And I think the no-kill movement, I was a big part of I did the first rally, actually, for no-kill. I co-hosted that here in town because what we had was, I think the good that came out of it was raising a level of awareness about our local shelter that were euthanizing over 20,000 animals a year here in Vegas, which to a lot of people, they were stunned to find out that any animal was euthanized at the shelter. Stunned. Wow. So it created because here's the thing, it's the Animal Foundation do have very good, when they shoot out a newsletter or an email, it's very well put together. It's very glossy. It's very fabulous, And so people just didn't realize, because they never mentioned they're a kill shelter. They never mentioned that it never happened. And so I think it raised a great awareness to that. It's the first place I send people. It's not my favorite place, but it's the first place I say, you want to adopt an animal, please go down there because it is the kill shelter. Their chances are slim as compared to an animal in a rescue. So we send people down there. Go ahead.
Now that brings up the shuffling issue.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, we're back to shuffling.
Like half of my brain wants to say, yeah, that's right. And then the other half of my brain says, no.
I know. It's
not necessarily.
No, it makes me crazy now because I'm like, yeah, we're just shuffling. The rescues are pulling from there.
Right, that's the thing. I mean, no one thinks about it. I have a quick anecdote that I think might be helpful. And so when I used to tell this story in a good way until just recently. But when I was in my early 20s, we got rid of a dog. They essentially adopted at an adoption fair, and it was like one of the most successful stories I've ever heard. I mean, the one who adopted it was on TV on the Home Shopping Network, just raving about how wonderful this dog is, and the whole family was so happy about it. And it was only recently that I realized that was a horrible thing that we did. And I take responsibility for that. Because what did we do? Yes, that dog has a better life.
Yeah.
Right? But what did we displace? We displaced another dog from being adopted? Because there's only so many adoptions per year. That's all there is to it. You have a fixed number, Whatever that number is going to be this year is going to be.
Yeah.
So if you give up an animal, even if it's to a no-kill shelter, guess what? Another animal will be displaced.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is. And it's a hard reality to swallow.
It is.
Because now I can't tell that story anymore
Right.
and feel good about it.
Right. That's why I was saying, the more I watch the documentary, the more I have to question everything that I feel about homeless animals now. I've pulled away from the no-kill movement. I feel it went a little bit, you know, you're the worst people ever. And I think it stopped people going down there, as well as inspired people to go down there. Because they say, oh, I hate them, I can't support them. I'm like, oh, gosh, this is just, you know, people are people, so people can think whatever they want and act how they want in those kind of situations. But yes, some adopted and some said, no, I'm never supporting them. So you know, where did that land us? And then it pitted, you know, rescues against the no kill, the kill shelters against rescues, and like no,
so,
they're better.
It's so bad.
Oh,
it's so bad.
it's so
I
bad.
really hate it. It's, you know, it's so funny. Like, so you probably know who Nathan Winograd is, and
Yes,
and he has this hard line, and he calls, like, you know, open admission shelters slaughterhouses, which frankly is disingenuous because I know he's vegetarian and he knows what a slaughterhouse is.
right.
So, and then Richard Evansino, who's, you know, dubbed is the father or the grandfather of the no-kill movement. He uses softer language, but a lot of the prescriptions he has are very, 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 very like they achieve the same type of animosity. But he's not, you know, he's not an unfriendly guy, and he doesn't, you know, foment, you know, conflict between people. But I think, you know, like I said before, those, you know, promulgating those fictions, just what are people to think?
Yeah.
It's no one's to blame except who's left. Oh, shelters. Oh, that's right. They are the ones who are killing. I guess they're bad people.
Oh, it's. I mean, you know, the thing is, there are some. Not all shelters are created equal. We all know that. I mean,
Right.
I've tried to help our local shelter. Except I think their outreach is awful. I think the social media needs a heck of a lot of work, you know. And then I've got a friend that is the executive director of the El Paso, Texas shelter, who's doing a phenomenal job. He's doing all the things that I go, oh, why are you not here? This would be so great. And I said they're not all created equal. I do have a question for you, though. You interviewed Krista Coppola, and it said her husband was the director of, and it didn't in Vegas. Are you allowed to say what he was the director of, which shelter? Because no,
it's a good no. You can say what you like. I just don't remember what he was the director. I think he was the director of the shelter. I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and watch that.
All right, because I don't remember his name as being part of our shelter, because we've had that same director for quite some time. And then I was wondering, maybe the only we don't have that many facilities actually in town. So the other one is the Nevada SPCA, which I think they've had Doug for about 20 years, and he just left recently. But yeah, I was just curious. I was like, did I just miss who they said that was? You know, because that's Vegas. Yeah. But yeah, so you have that. Oh yes, you have the shelters that aren't all created equal, and then you get your rescues aren't all created equal. There's a big piece running on social media right now about, which makes me laugh because I know how little money our rescues have because I work with them directly to fund them. But they were saying, oh, some rescues are going in and they're spending $10,000 on a dog. I'm like, I don't know any rescue has that kind of money. Who is doing this? So I'm not understanding this Washington Post piece. And they said, oh, it was some report the USDA did about rescues buying from puppy mills, these auctions. So I asked the Washington Post, I said, do you have a link to the actual report? Well, they do mention, I said, with the names of these rescues that are doing this. And they go, well, they show you some invoices. And I said, no. Do you have a link to the report? And there's no link to the report. So I'm quite irritated about the whole thing. But it's got people fired up now. We hate rescues now. They're all in it for money. I'm like, not the 27 I work with. They haven't got two pennies to rub together.
There's over 10,000 rescues. They're all independent. Most of them are independent. People basically starting up their own thing.
Yes.
I mean, the notion that there's somehow a rescue, prototype out there is absurd.
Oh gosh, there isn't. I mean,
and some do. Some do terrible things. Some hoard animals.
Yes, they do.
They're misguided, so they'll go to auctions, and they auction off for the dogs they're not going to sell.
Because they
So
think they're saving them.
they think they're saving them.
Yeah.
So there's all these aspects to it, but I mean, I don't know what the point of that piece would be other than to get a bunch of clicks.
I think so, because I think you got people so wound up. And I just started asking for information and links. And do you ever, I need to how can I read this? And I thought, then I kept thinking, what is the reason behind this? Why is this even out there? Because it made no sense to me. I said, of the 27 rescues, and trust me, I look at all their financials, Hugh, they don't have any money.
Well, it could be, if I could, as cynical as I am, and
it could be a pretend rescue.
Well, that's true. I mean, I could figure out in 10 minutes, I could tell you how to get around it. But, it could be, a lot of these stories, I'm sure, are fed by these groups like you were asking about, the NAIA, Farm Bureau, AKC,
PJAC, and all of those. Yeah.
They want this sort of conflict out there, and they do not like rescues, and as much as they say they do.
Yes, I agree with you.
Because it's competition.
It's competition. Exactly,
competition.
It is. It is competition. And I followed we had our pet store ban in place for 2 years, ready to be enacted in January this year. So a lot of people work very, very hard on it because we've got pet stores here who are selling animals in the worst conditions ever. I mean, you've heard the millions of stories, because they come in from the puppy mills, and we all know a good breeder would never put their puppy in a store, and they would never sell it online either. So we've got. We're excited. We worked very hard on it. It was a 2-year time frame for them to get change their business model to a rescue model. It was the deal for Nevada. And I'm not kidding you, about a month before, a new council member, all of a sudden, she pops up, not someone I know at all in the animal community whatsoever. All of a sudden, well, when I was looking for my dog, and I forgot what the breed was, I had to go to Colorado, and I don't want other people to have to do that if they want a certain breed. And I'm like, really? We're talking about animal welfare here. What are you on about? And I did a little bit of digging, and then I found an article basically by PJAC bragging how it all went down in Vegas, how they took down our bill that was about to go into effect. And immediately after it was overturned, 2 weeks later, we had Petland with 19 counts against them. 19, right. And it was going to be something like $20,000 fine. They ended up, I think, only paying $1,500 maybe. A lot was dropped. I'm like, oh man, here we go again. So, like you say, there are organizations that are against, rescues operating. They want people to have animals available for purchase, which is what they want to do.
They're against more or less any animal welfare legislation.
Yes, they are. I see how them and the AKC like to fight a lot of those as well. And people go, really? And I go, yeah. Who do you think certifies these USDA puppy mills to say that they're a full-bred dog? And they go, oh. That's right. So, I mean, when you think about it.
As if that means anything anyway.
Well, exactly. I was going to say, when you think about it, Hugh, it is a brilliant business model. I'm just going to make up these certificates, and I'm going to tell you.
It's a $35 million a year business predicated entirely on consumer gullibility. Yeah. It's brilliant.
It's just brilliant.
The only thing it guarantees you is the chances that your dog will be a product of inbreeding. I mean, that's about that's all I could say.
Well, this is it, because puppy mills, they don't care if it's father to daughter or mother to son breeding. They don't care. They don't care at all. And so it's quite fascinating to me. So I'm not a fan of. I'm just not a fan of this breed, and really is only based on looks anyway. And it's never about welfare of animals ever, because clearly you don't get a super healthy animal anyway. So it's quite interesting. So again, we're kind of back into that products thing again, aren't we? So again, whenever we view these animals as products, we'll just treat them like products. Hey, the new iPhone's out. I need a new iPhone. So off goes the old one. Out goes the old dog, and in comes the new puppy.
Yeah, and that's what really debunks this whole notion of pets are family.
Oh.
Which is this really, I think, cynical approach, right? I mean, how stupid do they think people are? But apparently pretty stupid.
Yeah.
I mean, the reality is some people do. Okay, we know that. So we're not picking on them right now. But convincing the whole population that something like 90% claim that they're treat them as family members, but you know furthering that as a truth is very, very destructive in all kinds of levels. Why would people need to change or even look at their behavior? They're already being treated like family members. Things like that. Just like you were saying about the commodities, it obscures the fact that they are treated like commodities. They are legislated like commodities, bred like commodities, disposed like commodities in every possible way. So it's just not possible that they're treated like family members.
No,
And
they're
that's
not.
it's just a financial position.
And
that the pet industry is taking.
even people that say they treat them as family, honestly, I can look at people and say, but you feed your pet the worst food ever. You are nutritionally abusing your pet. Is that treating them like a family member? So
Well, on every level, yeah. You see it on every level, and then when you press them on it, it's like, oh well, they're just dogs. Or they're just cats.
well, they're just dogs.
But the corollary to that is the every home should have a pet line, which was told to me by Petco, the Petco Foundation.
Oh, they're also
which I think might be the most insidious comment that was ever made to me, because you think about the welfare issues that would result if that were enacted.
Oh,
just think about that.
It would be a disaster. It would be a disaster.
It sells a lot of products.
It sells
lots of products.
It sells lots of products, and I think it really glosses over the level of responsibility that you have to have when you have a pet. And so then people are in this fairy tale of getting a puppy, and then they get home and they're like, oh gosh, this is work.
Yeah, because anyone can do it, right?
Anyone can do it, and then
everyone should have one. They're family members. They're good for you. They're good for your health.
Until it chews your shoe, and then they're like, but it's not your fault it chewed the shoe. It is your dog's, and then they're gone, and now they're back in the shelter. It's gosh, isn't it complicated, Hugh? It's so complicated.
I mean, it's simple. It's interesting when we talk about that issue, which is the core of the documentary. I mean, people argue, oh, yes, we do treat them as family members. We don't. Well, here's the situation. There's a friend of mine who went through a very hard time financially as a child. Her family was essentially bankrupt by medical bills, right? They had 2 pets. Never once, she told me, never once did they discuss ever getting rid of the cat or the dog because they were family members.
Yeah.
It was not even an option. So how many people are like that? Half? I doubt it.
I doubt it.
Not based on the data we have.
Well,
not based on the shelter.
And from my personal experiences through working with these rescues, honestly, I mean, I'm going to say the whole we're moving, we can't take the dog. I'm like, where is it you're moving to that there are no dogs that exist?
That's the leading excuse now.
And isn't it
one of the on most polls? It varies from poll to poll or intake sheet from intake sheet, but. Yeah, and you're hitting on it right here. It's not an excuse in itself. It's just a fact. Yes, I'm moving. What does that have to do with you abandoning your pet exactly?
It's like,
could we go further?
Yeah, how is that even related?
And they're instructed not to ask follow-up questions because that will make them uncomfortable. It's not that you're moving; it's that we peed on the carpet. And
and then it has me thinking sometimes. They go, isn't that sad? They dumped that dog. And then in my own head, I'm thinking, I don't know, it might be a better thing because if they'll dump their dog, maybe they didn't treat it very nicely anyway. Maybe it can get
a good point.
Maybe it can get into a nicer home. Yeah, I mean,
no, that's the other side of that.
Yeah,
here we go again.
I know
that's the other side of the pipeline.
It is. It is.
Then it displaces someone. So it's just there are no easy answers, and that's I think what is a little depressing, maybe.
Yeah. Oh, don't worry.
There really aren't easy answers.
If you want to be on a downer, I'll watch this documentary again. No, but
so you also have an insight into why there are so many easy answers promoted, because that is what people want to hear, and that's what they will give money for.
Yeah.
You can't raise money. I can't raise money based on my narrative. Okay, no one's going to give me money. It's like, I feel bad about this. I don't want to give you money. And I think that's what's going on with the ASPCA and other large groups. I mean, they can't put out narratives. If they want to raise $250 million a year, and that's about what they raise,
you
can't be telling people that they're responsible for problems.
Right, because you'll have no supporters. You would have no supporters.
You won't.
You just wouldn't.
It's okay to go to breeders. Just go to responsible breeders. Well, responsible breeders don't really exist.
They don't either.
In any serious sense of the word.
Because they breed for looks and not for health. So where's your ethics on that?
Or it's just a fascination with a type, which is which causes all kinds of problems. I mean, the puppy mills are not producing genetically diverse animals. They're producing these so-called purebreds that are just, that's where they're coming from. So if you're interested about the puppy mill issue and you don't care about the purebred dog issue, I don't know what you're doing.
Right.
I don't know what you're doing. You're just lobbying for a pet shop bill, which is only going to affect 4% of the dogs traded.
Yeah.
4%.
Gosh. Yeah.
So you're just making yourself feel better. And I'm not discouraging people from doing that. I think it's great. Any area you can help in is great. But we really have to look at the bigger picture.
Has there been any kind of studies on human behavior and animals, and this relationship we have with them, and why people find it so easy to just get rid of them when, for whatever reason, and then society just picks up the pieces, as in rescues and shelters, and then it just repeats all over again. Do you think there'll ever be any kind of research into that? I mean, I guess it's hard to get people to come forward and say, yeah, I'm a horrible person. I dumped my dog.
Well, I think that it's pretty well established why we do that. I think I hit on it a bit, as they're just subservient to us and we do what we want with them. James Serpell has written about that. He researches, people, relationship of people and animals in general, not just pets. And some of his work is quite fascinating. So you can Google him and Google some of his books. But, it comes down to this. You asked me, I think you were going to ask me about, one of the questions was something about, why you're saying, why is it such a gamble to be to be an animal? But it all comes down to the individuality of the animal. The individual lives are just simply not respected. So we treat them like commodities. Since they're commodities, they're legislated exactly like commodities. And that's basically how it works. And so how do we make people okay with killing them? Well, you just remove their individuality.
Yeah.
And why does that work so well? Well, we know it works so well. It's because we do it with 95% of the animals raised in this country. 95% are killed in this country for one reason or another. We can call them varmints, food animals, laboratory animals, call them what you will. But then we lump shelter dogs and shelter cats into that.
Yeah.
So once you strip someone of their individuality, you can pretty much do whatever you like to them. And so as much as we call them family members, they're not individuals. They're dogs, they're cats, they're this breed, they're that breed.
Yeah. Yes. Oh my gosh.
You're taking me back to the 1930s in my history studies, sir.
That's right. It's the same principle.
Going right back there.
You can apply it to any sentient being, really.
I did some education with the University of Glasgow, and it was about animal welfare and cognitive behavior. And gosh, if those 5 freedoms of animal welfare seriously could be enacted as law around the world, I can't imagine how much of an impact that would be. Because I talk to people all the time about this. So much of what they believe is just what they believe. It's never from an animal's perspective. And I think you start applying those things to, and the science that's behind it, I mean, it is there, the research is there. You think very differently. And I even posed a question to Jim a couple of weeks ago, and I said to him, one of the freedoms is, freedom from confinement. So if a dog is on the beach in India roaming, it's homeless, but it's roaming. It's freedom. It's got free. It can go around and do whatever it wants to do. Is that dog worse off than a dog that's 12 hours in a crate in the United States? Right. And Jim kept saying, yeah, but the dog in the crate knows it's going to get fed. I said, no, we're talking about confinement. So who's better off? So when you apply these 5 freedoms, then it's always from an animal's perspective. Right. Not a human saying, well, yeah, but the dog knows it's got shelter and it knows it's going to get some food. And it'd be able to go for a walk as well. So it's kind of a price to pay, to be in a crate. Well, no, because that's one of the freedoms. It is not free of. It's not free of confinement. So I think I've been posing this to a lot of people, and they'll say, yeah, well, I say, it's not what you think, though. It's always from an animal's perspective. And I think that's why Temple Grandin started to really change things too, which was, how does an animal see this? And once we can observe that and record that, then can we make changes that are better for the animal. And it's a Oh.
I do wonder how they feel about having their throats cut, though.
Well, let's think about that.
It's probably less stressful to walk through those shoots that she designs, but I don't think
ultimately,
that the knife is going to be a good experience.
Not at the very end of it. It's not.
You raise an excellent point about, welfare is predicated on the individual animal. It has to be. And so if you look at any of these issues we're discussing, most of them are not predicated on individual animals. They're predicated on groups.
Yes.
And so we can easily obscure their individuality. I mean, even our cruelty laws are not predicated in this country, are not predicated on the individual animal's perspective. They're predicated on property owners.
Yes.
So they originally started to protect property owners, and dogs and cats and every other animal is property, which also tells you why all those groups we were talking about who claim to be advocating for animals actually oppose it. Because if you allow exploitation anywhere or inhibit it, then you can do that everywhere essentially. So then all animals can be protected, and that is not profitable.
It's not profitable, and that's the battle, isn't it? There's big money in animals, and I mean, I am of that position that I have one of the cutest dogs you could ever imagine, Hugh, because he's got the longest eyelashes you've ever seen in your life. People always ask me, did you stick those fake lashes on that dog? Don't be ridiculous. They're his lashes, and they literally stick out beyond his head. And do you know how many people say to me, oh, you can make so much money off him, on Instagram and, working with these brands and that brands and blah, blah, blah. But I am not that person. I do not agree with animals being used for entertainment, not for profit. I don't agree with any of that. So, of course, you're not going to see me at a circus or any of those kind of things. And I know we're drilling down to something quite fine, but I'm not a big fan of the way some people pimp out their animals on Instagram just, because a brand wants to supply them with dog food for the year. I'm just not that person. I am also that person that will turn down any campaign for any product that I don't deem is good for an animal either. I turn down a lot of money because I'm not recommending, bad food, because I just don't think that's how you should treat an animal, is to give them awful food and take money to promote that. Because one, you either didn't research it, which is bad, or two, you just took the money, which is bad because it harms animals ultimately. So I have an issue with that as well. But I think when you start thinking differently from their perspective, I think you think differently about animals.
Think about how much damage was done by social media for, say, the bulldog or for the pug, or to the, any of those smashed in face dogs.
Yeah. And
even this, and what has Westminster done to the German Shepherd? I mean, Westminster is basically a commercial for poor breeding. That's what it is. Not the opposite. It's not the opposite.
Do you remember the Crufts show in England? It's the same kind of thing. Dog show. It's the biggest one, and they had a German Shepherd, and its back legs were almost like bent and touching the floor. They're sloping back, and people were just in uproar about that. I mean, just in uproar. And I thought, this is just dreadful. And, you're talking about the spay-neuter thing. I say, Jim and I are going to move to Sweden now. But I've changed my position on that too, as well. Mainly from a health perspective. I'm like, well, why are we just not sterilizing? Why are we cutting off the whole endocrine system? The spay-neuter that actually leads down the path of health problems when you cut off an endocrine system. So, it's all well and good saying, well, we won't have a load of puppies and we won't have a load of kittens, but now you're going to have a load of dogs with a lot of other issues down the road because, again, a law was put into place that didn't have enough knowledge, education, science behind it. And it's not the solution. And at 4 months old, it is not right to do that to an animal. At 4 months old, they're not fully developed. So I look at animal laws and I think, oh my gosh, who put this together? This is so ignorant. I was looking at our dogs in hot cars law. We had an amendment last year, but it's only for domesticated companion animals. So if you don't have domesticated companion, you can leave it in your hot car. I mean,
that's intentional. I mean that's very telling.
It's so idiotic, isn't it? It's like, but don't worry about this dog and this this police dog or whatever. And we've had police dogs die because they were left in a hot car here in Nevada. So I look at all aspects of the animal world, and while there are some amazing people in that you look at every aspect and you go, yeah, it's a pretty dirty business. It really is. There's a very tragic side to animals and their lives. it's just the way people treat them, the way they feed them, the way they train them, the way they dump them, the way they sell them, breed them. It's the laws that don't protect them. At times I get really frustrated because you sound like you're very similar to me. I email those people. I ask them and I say, do you have the research? Do you have this? And when you really dig deep, you're like, gosh, this is a dirty business. It really is. And it is. It's really, really rough. But I mean, I am that kind of person. I'm like, stick some laws in place. Throw them all in jail when they abandon a dog. I am that person. I just don't know how you.
I agree, but society has to agree too. I mean, that's the problem. You could put laws in place, but then they just won't be enforced.
Yeah, and
or they'll fail or be repealed.
What do you think it is about Sweden then that they have this completely different view of animals?
Well, we don't understand. Well, that's the thing when you use the Sweden analogy. People don't understand because it is a different culture. And if you're not of that, it's like trying to describe ethics to someone who doesn't have a sense of ethics. It's impossible to do it.
Yeah, it really is.
So they try to find all kinds of rationalizations for it, but they simply value. They have values that exceed ours. They do.
Yeah.
Certainly in this area.
Yeah, and I maybe there's a little bit. I've got a bit of Swedish in me then, because I'm like, that's how I think. I don't want to fix my pets. It's certainly for health reasons. I'm responsible. It would be actually, it's probably really nice to have a pet and live in Sweden. But it's so enjoyable to be around other people that have that same kind of view and value.
I think so.
It would be so. I mean, I can't even stand going in a dog park. I don't want to be I don't want to be around people that are not responsible. I just don't want to be around it, and I find it quite difficult to be around other people. We do a lot of photo fundraisers for animal rescue, and it's really fun, and people get lovely photos of their pets, and I can't take the people sometimes the way they are with their pets. If they come in with a shock collar, I have to say something. If they come in with a prong collar, if they're screaming at their pet, I have to say something. And it's hard. It's really, really hard to go anywhere and see that. We went to a parade, and we had to leave the parade because I couldn't bear to take the way this woman was acting with her dog with this awful prong collar on it and a big fat chain. I couldn't take it. I really couldn't take it. I said, no, I just can't be around people that aren't kind to animals. Hard time for me.
And if you can't even address the shock collar issue, which is so clearly, there's so much science on this.
Oh yeah.
Petco and PetSmart are selling them, and they have no qualms about it, even though I know that they know that they're bad.
Pets are family.
This is a technology that's so antiquated.
Yeah.
Not even the military is using it anymore.
It's just weird to me.
And you can't question people. So that's what I mean about changing norms. People have to be confronted.
They have to. And I know we do it on these. You can't have, well, for example, I host a lot of really nice pet events. And one of them, I always ask, who are your vendors? And if there's a shock collar training company that's a vendor, I say, well, I won't host, but let me educate you. You can't have this is a day to celebrate your pets and how much we love them, pets are family, and then have the shock collar people there. You just can't have that. So then I send them all the information. I send them videos. I say, it's graphic, be careful, and some images. And here are some cases of some, trainers that are, in lawsuits right now for harming animals. And I've had them actually uninvite them. I said, right, I'm not saying I just won't host it. I can't be a part of that. And we do have to, I think we do have to confront it. I know it's awkward, but how it makes me sick when I see it. I'm like, oh my God, right to the pits of my stomach. Like, why would you do that to your animal? Why would you hurt your animal? I saw a King Charles Cavalier with a shock collar on.
It's bizarre. I mean, they're very, credulous people, and they're told, and some vets likely don't know any better, and so they're just allowed to keep doing this sort of thing.
Yeah.
And no one pushes back, and so it just keeps going on and on.
It seems that when things are...
it's profitable.
Yeah, it seems that when things are clearly awful to animals, awful, they hurt animals, someone's dumping an animal, why is that, and it's so wrong, why is that so difficult to point that out when it's clearly very wrong? Why are people uncomfortable with saying, why have you got a shock collar on your dog? Do you know know how damaging a prong collar is? So
Yeah,
why?
yeah, and that's what I'm pushing for. More, we have to be more outspoken and
Yeah,
hold people I mean, in every issue, really,
yeah,
hold people accountable for their behavior. This whole notion that's just running rampant in this country that no one has to take responsibility for anything is terrible.
it
It's hurting
is.
everybody and everything.
It really is, and who suffers? The animals, the scapegoats, the,
Right,
for
right.
all their dirty deeds, and it's not right. It's really not right. And I just think, yeah, I mean, do you know the amount of people that will argue with me about food is ridiculous? I mean, ridiculous. They'll argue with me about shot collars. They'll argue with me about having left their dog in a hot car. I always tell everyone, I don't care, you could be my best friend. And if you actually park next to me and leave your dog in a hot car, I'm calling the police on you. That's it. It's wrong, and we have to say something. I mean, I hate summer here for that reason. We've already called the police twice already this season, and we're at April. You know, because we already cracked 100, didn't we? I think yesterday or something. And I just, again, I said to them, you know, even if it wasn't hot, why would you leave your dog so distressed in the car by itself? That dog is clearly distressed. So why don't you care about its welfare? It's not necessarily always about heat or extreme cold. So why are people not connecting? Why are they not connect? Why are they disconnected?
It's a strange thing. I mean, it's a very strange thing. It's like it's so clearly yet another example of they're not they're not family
They're not.
members. We don't say if they were we would use empathy and we would say, oh well, I would certainly not like to be in a hot car with no water.
Yeah.
But they just don't make that connection. Or at least some people don't.
Or maybe it's more. Maybe they just don't have. It's hard, I think, sometimes to address really how you are with your pets. I think it is hard when you say that food is really awful that you're feeding your pet. It's full of sugar, and there's just no nutrients in it because I can read an ingredient label. I've done all my research. And then I'm sitting. You might be mortified by this when I tell you this. In other words, I'm saying you should be to make a change. That sometimes, I know you're going to be mortified by this. In other words, you really need to.
That's a good way to start.
Oh, I'm telling you. And I go, but I can help you. So I've always come from that place where I'll try and help as many people as I possibly can, just so that they can treat their pets better and they can live longer and have happier lives, But it is, I think when you're in the animal world, you are confronted with it all the time. And I just feel that there is such a responsibility to have to say something. Thank God I have a radio show because,
You have a platform.
Getting around everybody would be quite difficult, Hugh. I mean, I'm dreading this event tomorrow because I'm going to see someone that's using a shot collar or something, and we've got this pet event. Well, it's actually not a pet event. It's a classic Cadillac car event, and they've invited us to have a booth there, which is great. It's a great way to talk to people and connect. But, yeah, I have a feeling I might be saying, I had someone say to me, well, I have to use a prong collar because otherwise how's my dog ever going to get a walk? It needs a walk. And I said, your dog needs a walk to be healthy, but you'll hurt it in order for it to walk. What?
Yeah.
This is crazy. This is just crazy town to me at times. And I do have to back away from it. I think I've learned very well how to it's all a bit much right now. I need to step away from some things and just, switch off from it because it can be quite overwhelming. But I think the biggest take I got from your documentary was what we're currently doing is not the answer to the homeless pet population. It
really isn't.
Because if it was, we wouldn't have any animals in shelters and rescues.
Yeah, and I mean, we're going to get to quote unquote no kill soon. It's just an accounting thing.
Yeah.
I could tell you how to get it to zero in terms of the numbers, but that doesn't mean that the welfare issues have changed at all.
Not at all, because people are still
and animals are still being killed in all kinds of ways in and out of shelters. So, I mean, it's one component, and that's good. But I'm just concerned that's going to be used as for fundraising efforts and for cause for celebration that is just unwarranted.
Do you know what my goal would be with our charity, Rocking for Rescues? And we're an unusual charity in the fact that we actually don't rescue animals, although there's always someone reaching out or we find one, we support them financially, So we're paying for food and training. Training's a big thing that we're doing. A friend of ours, they're called Portastic Friends. And what they're having to do is provide training for dogs in shelters that are otherwise not going to get out. And they've been very successful, actually, because I know some of those dogs never would leave that shelter and would never leave alive. So I love what they do, but ultimately our goal is that we don't have to fund anybody because
that should be the goal.
They won't have any animals. I mean, I don't even think people even think that is the goal. I think the goal is just find homes. It's like, no, the goal is to not have any animals to have to find homes for. That's the goal. But I'm sure I will watch the documentary again, Hugh, because I took that many notes. I'm like, and I'm going to follow that guy, and I like him, and I like old Bernard and the way he delivers. That's my kind of delivery. It really is.
You liked it.
No, I did. I really liked it because I'm like, there's some truths here. And I really I enjoyed the frankness of the reality of homeless pets and why it is a gamble to be an animal right now. It is a real gamble. And like you say, not just dogs and cats. It extends beyond that. The stuff I did with the University of Glasgow covered everything from farm animals to homeless animals on the streets to, rescues and those kind of things and, factory farming and all that kind of stuff. And it was really a great course that I took. And as they made me look at animals even more differently because, the issues, it's big. It's a big issue. It's not just like you say, groups. It's not just dogs and cats.
And that's really it right there. You've hit on it. I mean, these are all interconnected issues. And if you're really just engaging in self-deception, if you think that you can, save one animal, not another, and somehow not care about 95% of the animals in the country and only care about a couple percentage points, which are dogs and cats.
Yeah.
You're really deluding yourself and you're not helping the dogs and cats. So it's a much, much bigger issue. Because animals are legislated and treated exactly the same way. There's a big difference between how we treat different classes. But the overarching system is one of exploitation. And until we address that, forget about So my prediction is you will never get rid of puppy mills, ever.
I don't
unless
see
you
it.
change that. And I know that upsets people, but it's true because they're factory farms and factory farms are legal. Unless you make factory farms illegal, you'll never get rid of puppy mills.
It's funny you're talking about this because right now we've got a governor's race going on in Nevada and we've got a current, what's her position right now in the Chris G.
County commissioner.
Yeah, she's a commissioner. She's running for governor. And all of a sudden, I've never known her for animal welfare issues at all. But all of a sudden, she's got this whole campaign, I'm going to shut down the puppy mills in Nevada. And I'm like, oh, really? Are you?
Oh, good for you.
Well, first of all, yay. Well, of course.
You do that.
That's campaign clickbait right there. So...
If she had $1 billion, she might have a chance.
I'm like, okay.
To buy off every ag company.
Right. And it just irritated me. I said, would you like to list the puppy mills you're actually going to shut down? And since all our pet stores buy from Missouri anyway, how are you going to impact that? Because, you just overturned our pet store ban. So, the sales are still going on. So how about go back to that, And it just irritated me. And I'm like, can you just tell me the names of... And I've never really been able to find a really comprehensive list, even though I've been on the Puppy Mill website for Nevada. It seems like there's some up in Reno. And strangely enough, I'm not seeing... I know we've got 1 million backyard breeders out here, for sure we have. But I've not been able to really find any around Vegas, which kind of... is strange to me, but I'm like, isn't that nice of her to want to?
That's very nice. But you just mentioned backyard breeders, but that's what's happening, and so the HSUS will tell you that the puppy mill numbers are decreasing, which is true. How you define puppy mills is this large commercial. I said, but aren't they just business? It's just the distribution is just morphing into backyard breeders. Oh yeah, that is happening.
It is.
So they're just as bad. So I don't really like the term puppy mill because it's deceiving. It's a dog farm, whether you're raising 5 dogs or 50 dogs. It's a dog farm. There's squalid conditions, and we shouldn't have any of them. That's
right. I agree with you 100% on that. But and I think some people might listen to this interview and go, "Well, that was all a bit, There was no like rainbows and unicorns on this one." But it isn't rainbows and unicorns. It really isn't. It's a very serious issue, which I don't see, and I'm right in the middle of it. I don't see this problem going away anytime soon. I really, really don't. Not while ever we've got people that like certain breeds, or you get a movie that comes out with a popular breed in it, and then, you know, people soon get tired of them, and they get dumped off as well.
Right.
At Christmas time, senior dogs getting dropped off in favor of picking up a puppy, those kind of things. It just... I don't see how, and unless we can mind control people, then I don't know how we're going to. I mean, I do personally think a lot of people that I have met and come across, I do feel like I've influenced them in one way or another, whether it was how to feed better food to their pets or not to use a shock collar, and they have been receptive to that.
That's good.
I do feel that, you know, I have made an impact that way, but ultimately people will still do what they want to do. And if that means that that animal doesn't fit into their plans at that time, you know, then again, they're on that, what do you call that wheel that you spin around, the gambling wheel?
Oh, I don't know.
What do you
Wheel
call
of Chance.
that?
That's a good question. The Wheel of Chance of some
Yeah,
sort.
game of the Wheel of
Wheel of
Chance.
Outcomes. You know, it's just all these excuses people use, and
Yeah, and I just don't want animals to have to be on that Wheel of Chance, but it always feels like everything's such a risk. Like, oh, it's risky being an animal these days. I mean,
it is risky.
It is.
It's very risky.
With the future, it's very unknown as to what's going to happen.
So I think when people need to, you know, if people are going to learn, they're not going to learn through just education. So you might ask, why did I do the film?
Yeah.
But, I mean, the information was so bad out there that I had to do something that was comprehensive.
Straighten it up.
But I also threw in, I'd like your take on it, threw in, you know, to use the empathy card, play the empathy card. You had my sister wear a shock collar in the film. Is
that your sister?
That's how people learn.
I
right?
love her. I love her.
Really, really painful. Even low settings are really painful.
You could
she had
see
a migraine for 3 days.
Did she?
Yeah, I was scared.
Is she still your sister?
Yeah, she wanted to do it. You know, she wanted to do it.
'Cause she
and
knew-
I appreciate that tremendously. But that's what we need. In a broader sense, we need people to relate to animals on an emotional level. Otherwise, you know, the changes are going to be tough.
My plan this summer is, I've got the list right next to me, is a series of like PSA type stuff we're going to film. I am fortunate that I get to go on Fox once a month and talk about all kind of issues, which is great. It's wonderful. But I agree with you about the visual aspect and really seeing what happens. Someone donated to me a prong collar. And when I pulled it out of the box, I almost died. And I thought, no, I'm going to turn that into a PSA. That's what I'm going to do. And we're going to put it on Jim's neck. Jim's going to wear it. But
I would advise against that.
As much as I'm not a fan of PETA for some things, I love their campaigns. I love a whole shock you into reality, and if there's some kind of reaction, hopefully there'll be some action, you know, following that. You know, you go, oh my gosh, I can't believe that. So I'm all about that, and I want to say a big thank you to your sister for doing that, because it was very impactful. You know, I sent that to that because she put the clip out, and I sent that to loads of people. And they were like, wow. I said, yep. And when she says, you know, return it to who? This thing just needs to be thrown away. And I'm like, she's so spot on and right, you know. Do you ever think PetSmart or Petco or any of these stores that sell these shock collars and prong collars will ever get rid of them if there's more of a public outcry?
They will get rid of them if it's no longer profitable to sell them. So yes, if it's like the reason, in my view, that they're adopting out pets. That's what their customers want. So if their customers don't want the shock collars, they won't sell them. If they do want it, they will absolutely sell them, regardless of consequence.
Yeah, so they're just driven by demand and
completely.
Wow, sad, isn't it? I hate the fact that.
But it gives us some power, right? So if there's, like you said, if you have public outcry and you make it hard enough on them, they will stop selling them.
Yeah. Well,
if it hurts their image.
Well,
but that's the only thing they respond to.
Yeah.
It's the only thing they
sad, isn't it? It's really sad. And I think people need to also understand this, that not everybody that creates a product for pets or a food for pets or a store for pets doesn't necessarily love animals. You have to understand this. I said, you know, it's profit. It's for profit. And some people do love animals. I said, but, you know, when you're selling a shock collar, how much do you really, really care about an animal's welfare? You really don't at that point. So
yeah,
I think
I
people have
don't
this
see how you could.
people have this fantasy that anyone that works with animals or created a product, they must just adore animals. I'm like, nope, not the case. I mean, the show I did on pet shampoos, I'm sorry, I've found 2 certified organic shampoos out of the thousands of shampoos that are out there on pets that you're dousing your pets in chemicals that are so dangerous to them. And they go, but why would they make a shampoo if it's not? Or why was it available if it's not safe? Well, there's no regulation on it for a start off. I said, but they know what they're putting in their products, and this is about profit, and that's, thank goodness, from that show I get to actually do recommendations too, to put people in the right direction, so they don't douse their pets in chemicals. But pretty shocking, quite an eye opener for a lot of people to go, oh really? I just thought they would love pets if they created a pet shampoo. Nope. No. To be honest with you, our shampoos are just as bad anyway. They're not good either. They're just not good. But I think it's a very I love that. Like I say, I love the documentary. I think what you did is you presented all the different tentacles to the homeless animal problem, and how people contribute to it in different ways, and how certain organizations don't like that particular model, so that makes it difficult too when they're all about profiting from animals. But I think it makes you think, and that's what I really enjoyed about the documentary. I said, I think I'm going to have to write a list and go through every aspect of your documentary and go, how do I feel about that? What's my stance on that? Have I been, repeating things mindlessly too? I need to really think about that. Like I said, we got some people to go to the kill shelter, and we got some people to not go to the kill shelter when they found out they killed him. So was it a good thing? Was it a bad thing? I don't know. It is. It's a very complicated issue, and I just hope that we all turn into Sweden. Is my goal.
That's a good way to.
It's my absolute goal. This must be the longest interview I've ever done. Yeah, Jim.
Oh, really?
It's been brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
I'm glad to hear that.
We've had a long show, but it's been great.
No, it has, and I think this is
I enjoyed it.
I think this is the kind of interview that when I actually promoted it, particularly to friends, I said, if you work with animals, you're a groomer, you're a trainer, you have a pet, you've dumped a pet. I actually wrote that as well. You've abandoned a pet too. Then and you're a rescue, and you work with rescue. You need to listen to this show. You need to listen to this show to understand what you're involved in. And see how you can make a difference by thinking differently about what you do. Especially rescues. It is not the solution. It's just a little Band-Aid, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I really appreciate you having me on, and so we could talk about these issues, because it doesn't get much, they don't see much light of day, you might say.
Yeah.
Normally, so it's important.
Well, it's not the sexiest of topics, is it? Let's face it. And people are all about glamour, and they're not about, statistics, research,
they need to change.
Psychology. Yeah. You all need to change your ways for these animals. It's not the sexiest, but I think it's a topic that I'm so glad that you addressed in your documentary. Now, what's the name of your other documentary that you've got? Because I'm going to watch that too.
That's called Beyond Closed Doors, and that's on farm animals. There's science ethics and of farm animal welfare, and that can be streamed from my site as well.
I'm going to watch that too, and then I think we should have you come back on and talk about that as well.
Oh, I'd love that.
Yeah, I would.
That's an issue I'm very, very well acquainted with.
So, are you vegetarian, vegan? Are you any of those?
Yeah. I don't eat animals.
Yeah, no.
Or dairy, of course. Actually, dairy would be the first thing I remove. But yeah, so that I walk the walk, you might say.
I like that. I like that a great deal. Well, Hugh, it's been fantastic actually spending this much time with you. Really, really has. And
I appreciate it.
I have a feeling we could take this even further, but I will definitely watch your other documentary, and I'd love to have you on to talk about that as well, because I feel like it's an area that's overlooked as well. That there's so much focus on just cats and dogs, and
that's great. Yeah, I'd appreciate that.
And I think with the vegan movement and the vegetarian movement, I think it would be a very informative kind of show for people to listen to, so they can fully understand what really does go on in farming. Driving across to Le Mars, which is what I did 2 weeks ago, Iowa, and going through farmland where the animals are not actually on the farmland grazing, and the calves are in those plastic little hut things. It was
the sheds. Yeah,
it was mortifying to see. I have to say, it was so upsetting. and they're in the most beautiful part of the country with fields around them, and they're not in the fields technically. You know, they are confined.
Yep.
And it was very upsetting. And my partner, she's vegetarian too. She said, "What are they?" And I said, "Let me explain that to you. I said, it's going to upset you, but you'll know." And she said, "Wow, gosh, how farming has changed." I said, "Not recent. It's been like this for a long time." But I'll definitely watch the documentary. We'll definitely have it back on for that. Your website, so people that can actually watch both your documentaries, because we're going to encourage them to do both, is...
So you can get it at dogscatsandscapegoats.com. That's
Right.
like one word. Or you could, it links to the same site. You could put in sandgrainfilms.com.
And to find you on Facebook, it's the same, Dogs, Cats, and Scapegoats?
That's correct.
Perfect. I do follow the page. So as soon as I put this show up as an archive, I'll send you a link back, because I'll be sharing this with everyone that I know that didn't get to listen to the live show. But I want to thank you for your time, Hugh. And when you're in Vegas, we must hang out.
Oh, absolutely. I will do that for sure.
We'll right all the wrongs in the world over
we
a
will.
cocktail.
We'll solve all the problems.
We will. Well, it's been a great interview, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. I much appreciate your time.
Okay, you too. Thanks very much for having me on.
Well, everyone, we have reached the end of the show. I bet you thought it was never going to end. But, you know, when you've got such a big topic, I mean, I was thinking about it yesterday. This is a massive topic, and I know there's so much more we could even talk about, because this documentary crams it all in there for you. I highly recommend you watch the documentary, and let me know what you take away from it, and if you're going to think differently about animals based on watching the documentary itself. There we go, Jim. We're at the very, very end. Can you believe it? So remember this: you can always help an animal in need. Either rescue, adopt, donate, volunteer, share their information, or view them as something so valuable that you would truly treat them like a family member. And we always say, be kind to all animals. It's a really important thing, not just cats and dogs. Be kind to all animals. Big thank you again to Hugh Dorigo for being my guest today. It was an absolute pleasure. Take a moment to like his Facebook page, Dogs, Cats, and Scapegoats on Facebook, and watch that documentary by going to dogscatsandscapegoats.com. Jim, thank you for pushing the buttons. Hello? Are you asleep? Are you napping?
I'm communicating with your guest.
Okay.
So we're good.
Thank you for producing the show every single week, Jim. Always appreciated. And my little poopers are asleep in the studio. They're all relaxed out, which is great. Hope you have a great weekend, everyone. Hopefully I may see you at the Findlay Cadillac Through the Years event tomorrow at Town Square, 11 to 4 p.m. You can pick up your Pickle Rescue T-shirts from us. We'll have some food samples, some treat samples. We'll have that crazy treasure chest that we always have, where you make a donation and take something from the treasure chest, and you never know what you can find in it. And I'll have those painted rocks, all pet themed, for purchase as well. And of course, 100% goes into the charity. That's it. Today you've been listening to Vegas Rock Dog Radio, where it is all about pets, people, and pop culture. I'm your host, Sam, the queen of rock and roll dogs, and always kiss your pets good morning and good night. And I'll see you next time.
Vegas Rock Dog Radio. Pets, people, pop culture. You've been listening to Vegas Rock Dog Radio. Pets, people, pop culture.
Visit Vegas Rock Dog Radio for more information. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And subscribe on iTunes and iHeartRadio. And remember, give your fur babies a big kiss from me, Sam, the queen of rock and roll dogs. You must not rely on the information in this broadcast from our hosts as an alternative to medical advice from your veterinarian. If you have any specific questions about a medical matter regarding your pets, you should consult your veterinarian or specialist.